everybody, welcome back to our channel. I'm Leah.
I'm John.
And we're going to be reviewing MTV's The Challenge Season 40, Episode 2.
Battle of the Eras. The Era Invitational.
Part 2. Okay, so they open up the episode with everybody walking in and seeing all of the Elimination Challenge setups. I thought it was very interesting that we didn't get to see the last part of the deliberation and see who was being voted in, their reaction to it in that moment. Instead, we just kind of got to the elimination challenges and we saw each person who was going in dressed up in their workout gear. And so we kind of knew who was going in from there, but of course they did still go to each era and the winners announced who they were throwing in.
And then of course, throughout the episode, they did start to show like the actual aftermath of the deliberations from the previous episode, which I don't know why they did it that way this time. They typically show, exactly what people say, unless it's a last second decision right before elimination, usually though. But when it's a group decision right there, they've been doing a better job of showing it, like showing us as the viewers exactly what's going to happen or who's going in. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I thought that was kind of interesting. But, they did bring back 4 big time eliminations that, I think they knew that these 4 were kind of either fan favorites or had really big moments in challenge history.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. Usually when we have these episodes, we start off with like the last part of the deliberation, then we see like the breakdown in the house and like people arguing back and forth and how the dynamics are, and then we get into the elimination challenge, which is something that's the format that I liked. I didn't like kind of like going back and forth between like what had happened the previous night or, right before the elimination challenge and then going back to real time. So, I didn't like the format, but it was really nice to see like all of the challenges or the elimination rounds that they opposed. So we have the hall brawl, the
ball in, take shelter.
Yes.
And then
pole wrestling.
Yep. This episode, the first elimination that we got was, of course, from Era 3. And Era 3 was, Leroy against Tony and Amanda versus Naya. Now, we had already been talking and discussing, Leroy coming back. We had said that we think Leroy should just be a family man.
If one of them was going to come back, I would have preferred to see Cam come back. But I know she's, doing her mom thing and working and all of that, so I understand. But I think, like we were saying in the last episode and what John was just saying, like Leroy I think he's kind of like overstayed his welcome, and he left in the perfect way the last time that he was on the challenge. But for this Balls In challenge against Tony, it was very interesting because I kind of like saw the hunger in his eyes a little bit, so I didn't know which way it was going to go.
Saw hunger in whose eyes?
Leroy.
I did not see any hunger in his eyes.
At the elimination, yes.
I didn't see any.
At the first challenge, absolutely not.
I didn't see any hunger from Leroy. I think he was ready to get back on that plane and go back to Cam. If you would have told me years ago that Tony Reigns would bully Leroy in an elimination challenge, like actually physically bully him, I would have said you've lost your mind. I don't know what challenge you've been watching. I don't know what challengers you've been watching, but that's never going to happen. But that's exactly what we got in the very first challenge, and in the very first elimination, and then the very first 2 challenges. We saw a very uncharacteristic like Leroy at that, getting dominated physically in a challenge, in an elimination round. And I'm not saying Tony's small, but in recent years, no one would have ever told you that Tony was going to be able to bully Leroy and throw his weight around or kind of manhandle him in a way. Mm-hmm. But it just looked like to me that Leroy was already on his way out. He was already, he already had one foot out and was ready to go back to camp. And I can't get mad at that. I feel that. But it's the same thing I'm saying, like he should have just been at home already.
Okay, I can understand that. I just kind of thought it could go either way because I thought that Leroy looked like he was ready to get in, but ultimately Tony took the W. They had a couple of dead balls, and I thought the challenge was to get the balls actually like in the bin, but apparently like all you had to do was just like get it in the circle, which I didn't like. I think like if there's that bin there, then the object of the game should be you get the W if the ball goes in. So that's the only thing that kind of like threw me off about this elimination challenge. But overall, I mean, I guess the strongest man won here. Let's get into Amanda versus Nia. So obviously, if this is a physical challenge, Nia is way bigger than Amanda. So that's the automatic thing for you to think is that Nia is going to win. But with Amanda winning the first round, like that was really surprising. But it's only because Nia got distracted. If Nia didn't get distracted, Amanda wouldn't have seen that go through and put the ball in there. But I will say, you know, I like Amanda, so I'm glad she at least got one W there. I think they had a dead ball, and then Nia got it into the circle or into the bin, and then Nia also won the last round. So, I mean, great try, Amanda, especially for a physical challenge. But I think we all knew that Nia was going to win, and it was very interesting seeing Josh and who was the other dude who was like kind of drooling over Nia. With the curly hair and Kylan. So I wonder how that's going to work out because, you know, good job to Nia. Congrats on your W.
This episode was already a win for me after this. Like, the rest of the episode, I could have cared less how everything else went. Amanda went home. It was automatically a win.
And the personality of the show was gone.
Automatically a win.
That's all I'm
happy she's gone.
Okay.
So now we can move on to the next era, which was Era 1. And we had, you know, two of the legends, two titans, Mark and Derek. And then we had two old-time players, two women that have played this game. They really were pioneers for this game, actually, when you really think about it, as well as Mark and Derek were also pioneers. You had Katie versus Anissa. And everybody knows Anissa has always been the elimination beast. Anissa, that's one of the things she's always done well at this game is going to eliminations and win. She helps people pack their bags and sends them home. And, you know, so the first round, of course, they ended up doing pole wrestle. And Derek is a beast when it comes to pole wrestle. I've only seen him get bested one time, and I think that, in my opinion, it was on the duel. And it was, in my opinion, probably one of the best elimination rounds that I've ever seen. It was him versus Wes. And Wes beat him in pole wrestling. But Derek is known as a wrestler. Like, Derek is phenomenal at wrestling. He shows it in every challenge and elimination that he's had, where he's been through, where he's had the opportunity to wrestle. He's shown that he's excellent at it.
He's very smart by going in low with somebody as tall as Mark. I think as soon as he did that, like it was a no-brainer for me. Yeah. I was like, okay, he looks like he's using strategy as well as his strength. And
then he uses his entire body.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Derek kind of shook Mark out of there really quick. Like, I think it was a 2-0 skunk. He got Mark out of there really fast. So
the best part was when Mark flipped him over, and then it was
Derek flipped Mark over, and then Mark flipped Derek over.
That was hilarious. But when he flipped Mark over after that, that's when I knew he was going to win. Yeah. So shout out to Derek.
And then, you know, of course, after that, we had the ladies round, which was Anissa versus Katie. And Katie showed some fire and some grit in that very first heat. Like, she showed she was not going to go silently into the night. And Anissa still ended up taking the first heat. And then in that second heat, she definitely went quietly into the night.
It was Amanda screaming, "Don't let her sit on you!"
And then she proceeded to let Anissa sit on her. And then it was just over. It's no other which way around it. It was just quick and clean like that. Amanda tried to tell her what to not let Anissa do, and then she let Anissa do that exact thing, and then Anissa just took the pole away. So, too easy. Amanda, she had a point. You know, don't let her sit on you, and she let her sit on her, and she lost.
And it was over
immediately.
Shout out to Anissa for coming through in the elimination rounds yet again. The next era we have is Era 4. This is the Hall Brawl. I'm so glad that they sent Polly in to go against Theo because honestly, from that deliberation last episode, I was like, there's no other person that should be going in against Theo. They have to settle this right here, right now. I'm very, very glad that they did.
And did they settle it? Oh, well, did Theo settle it?
Yes. And Polly was talking big stuff.
Talking cash shit.
And that's why I was like, okay, maybe it's a toss-up. We'll see what happens because honestly, in the Hall Brawls, whoever's like the biggest is usually the one who is going to win. But Paulie had that dog in him, so I was like, okay, maybe, things could work out. So they start off, they're on the opposite ends. They immediately run towards each other, and Theo knocks Paulie down. Like,
what did CT say? What did CT used to say? Choo choo! Like, good God!
I mean,
decapitated him.
Oh my God! I didn't know if Paulie was gonna get up after that.
I mean, he knocked him backward. Like it looked like he got hit by a Mack truck. Johnny said he thought he lost his soul. Like he said his soul left his body. And then the edit
where it was like.
like the moon and the stars and the solar system, like
that was hilarious. And then Paulie was like grabbing onto Theo's legs,
like
and
trying to hang
TJ
on for
was
their
like,
life.
Right? TJ was like, just make a run for it, Paulie. So Paulie runs for it. Theo takes 2 steps, boom,
like
W.
Quick. And then like to make things worse, like it's one thing to get embarrassed in the first heat. Like that happens to a lot of people that go into their first Hall Brawl. Like I'm not gonna lie, I've seen so many people get embarrassed in Hall Brawl, especially in that first heat. Because you go in there thinking probably, I'm just as strong or I'm strong enough. I'm going to be able to move him. So, you go in there head on with somebody that's bigger than you. And then in that second heat, usually people get smarter. Like, like, oh, I'm not as big and strong as them. I'm going to try and go underneath of them or I'm going to try and go over them. Like, I'm going to use some other type of strategy to try to get an advantage. And it seemed like Paulie took the same type of strategy into the second heat and Theo made it look worse. Like, he stood him up. Then Paulie had one leg in the air. Theo just picked his leg up and threw him on the ground, and then proceeded to walk over him to get to the light, to hit the button. Like
easy.
Like he completely dominated him. Like Theo should tell Paulie, you have to call me sir from now on.
Absolutely. Like you settled. Theo has won.
Like you're my son.
Absolutely.
You need to call me sir. Yes, sir.
And then they cut to Paulie's confessional where he knew like he was gonna be he was embarrassed at that point, and he knew when it aired again he was going to be embarrassed also because again he did talk a lot of shit, so he definitely looked defeated, and I think he's really, really upset that he has to leave Kara in the house by herself also.
So. Ooh, he got embarrassed. Oh man. Yeah. And I mean, like you said, he knew it was bad because he said he hasn't even seen it back yet and he already knows it was bad. Oh man, it's just like that's the one thing. You can't talk cash like that and then get embarrassed. Like it's one thing if he would have lost. If he would have lost and it was like 2 tough, hard fought like heats, then that's one thing. If he would have lost, and it was 2-1, that would have been another thing. Theo said directly after, I had no idea it would be that easy. And when you look at him and Paulie's shirts directly after, I was telling you during the episode, Theo's shirt was clean. It looked like he did not touch a lick of sand. Paulie had sand everywhere, like on his head, on his headgear, on his shirt. Oh man, just God, yeah. that was tough to watch.
Yeah, Paulie, you should be embarrassed. That was terrible.
Sorry to see it.
That was hard to watch.
Not really, but yeah.
So shout out to Theo for taking the W. All right, and then we had Olivia and Nerys going against each other. I had my money on Olivia at the beginning just because
I didn't know she was that much bigger.
I mean, she looked like she was just ready to take her on.
What they like this?
Right? So they start on the opposite sides. They run towards each other. Olivia heavily dominates her in the first round. Goes ahead and pushes that button, gets the W. Now the second round is where I was a little bit confused because they went against each other. Olivia had it at first, and then somehow she ended up on the ground and started pulling Nerys's legs. Then Nerys started dragging her towards the center, and then I guess Olivia got a hold of her somehow, started standing up, ran towards it, and then hit the button to get the W. I just didn't understand why Olivia was grabbing onto Nerys for so long. I think, honestly, at that point, because she was so close to the button, she could have just made a run for it and won anyway. I think it was just a lot of hoopla, honestly.
But she just made it so much more difficult than it needed to be.
Exactly.
But it's sad because when I look at both heats of that one too, Olivia kind of embarrassed Nerys too. Because in the second heat, Nerys got her bearings back about her. She dragged her by her. She dragged her on her foot halfway down the hall. Mm-hmm. And then it's like Olivia just woke up, like, hold up, I should be killing her. And then just stood up, picked Nerys up, put her on the ground, and then dragged her back out of the hall. So basically, era 4, 2 people just got embarrassed. That's really all it is.
I think it was definitely a get rid of the weak links type of elimination challenge.
And I mean, when I say embarrassed, I mean really embarrassed. That was one of those, y'all shouldn't be here. Go back home.
You're a meatball. You're going home.
Thank you. Thank you, CT.
And last but not least, we have Era 2.
Era 2.
And they did the Shelter Challenge.
They said Shelter In, and it ended up being Cara Maria versus Kellyanne. Who could have ever seen that coming from Johnny and Laurel? And then it ended up being Brandon versus Ryan. And
before we move on, their flashback into, like, Cara finding out that she was going into the elimination, it's like she was shocked, but also she was just like, I mean, I don't know why you would make that decision. So we see Johnny at the top. We see Paulie and Cara at the bottom. Paulie and Cara just, like, going off and doing all the theatrics. And Johnny's just like, I made the decision because you tried to make your case at the deliberation and you didn't try to mend this relationship beforehand. So it seems like a little bit performative because you know you're in the hot seat. But also I'm just like, why? I don't know why they would take that chance because first of all, Cara is a strong player. Cara came in second overall from that from the first challenge, and knowing that there's a possibility that she can come back and have that vendetta against you, like I personally like wouldn't take that chance. But Laurel and Johnny just wanted her out so badly, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how she does in this challenge or in this elimination, and if she comes back.
I mean, it's more so interesting because throwing in Cara, I mean, like you said already, Cara is a strong competitor. I do think Cara is annoying. I do. So I can see where Laurel at least comes from sometimes, even though I think her disdain for her is kind of insane, I think, in my personal opinion. But I think in recent seasons or in prior seasons, Cara has done a job of following Laurel around, kind of like I want you to mentor me, and Laurel has obviously shown she wants nothing to do with her. So I think coming into this season, Cara was already working with bad blood in the house. Like she has Johnny and Laurel on her team. Those two people that don't like her, and they also both happen to be strong players in this game. And then going into the deliberation, it was really basically between Aviv and Cara because they all perceived Jody to still be strong. I mean, Jody was an animal back in her day. We haven't seen Jody in a long time, but I'm assuming they all perceive Jody to still be very strong. So it ends up being Cara versus Kellyanne, which, again, we said this in the last video. Era 2's women are stacked. They have a lot of strong women in that era. So it's gonna be tough every deliberation, no matter what. Nobody in that era is weak. They're all winners. They've all won. So getting into the elimination, Shelter In. This is the elimination famously where Jay upset CT. One of the biggest elimination upsets that we've seen in challenge history. And so in this elimination round, you have to try to do whatever you can to block and close a door and prevent the other person that you're going against from opening that door before you open their door. And so this elimination round, shockingly enough, it was actually really entertaining to watch.
It was.
I can't lie. I mean, it was really interesting seeing everybody's different strategies. Ryan came up with a really sound strategy. He was like, I'm just going to work on this one side and make sure you have to do so much to get this one side open rather than even waste time on the different sides or the different things that are around here that I can put in front of the door. Brandon took some of the opposite approach. He tried to do loops and knots around the entire door, and then he started just throwing like cinder blocks and sandbags and large logs in front of the door, which Ryan got rid of all of that.
Like that.
In the snap of a finger. And then you had Kellyanne and Cara Maria. It seemed like they were both kind of coming up with the exact same strategy, to be honest with you. And both of these were really close. Both. And
did they come up with this strategy, or were people just yelling the strategy
That's
at
very
them?
True. Like you had Cara, of course you had Laurel and Johnny. They were trying to tell Kellyanne what to do so they could stay, even though Johnny hates Kellyanne and Kellyanne has always hated Johnny, but somehow, some way, I guess he hates Cara Maria more. But then you also had Paulie and CT, and all of Era 1 really voting for Cara Maria. They were all trying to help her win.
Yeah.
Everybody in Era 1 and then Paulie. So you had half of Era 2 rooting for Kellyanne. You had all of Era 1 and Paulie rooting for Cara Maria. And I mean, like I said, both were really close. I think all four people got the door open. But Ryan got his open. Well, Cara got hers open first, and she got hers open wide enough for her to slip in. Kellyanne was right on her tail though. Like Kellyanne probably would have needed like another couple minutes to get some chains undone in order to get in.
A couple minutes is crazy.
Maybe
that's not on your tail.
It might not even been a couple minutes. I mean, I'm saying a couple minutes is in like literally 2 minutes. I'm saying like literally 120 seconds. I think she would have got in.
That's not neck and neck.
That's kind of on your tail. You don't think so?
No, in a challenge like that, on your tail is like 10 seconds.
Okay, I mean, well, okay. So I guess she wasn't on her tail. But it was close. Everybody did get their doors open, but of course, you know, Ryan and Cara Maria came away with the W's. So, I mean, the eliminations were extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we saw some longtime heavy hitters go home. We saw some people that already should have been at home going home.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we got that big reveal at the end of the episode. What are karma votes? What do they have to do with the game?
Exactly. They're ranking people on a scale of 1 to 5.
And we have no idea. TJ said, you know, I'm not going to tell you guys what actually happens or what use it is, but you could have something to do with somebody winning $1 million. But he also told everybody before they left, you have to be careful how you treat people. And then the karma votes came in after all of the challengers that were staying in the house left.
Mm-hmm.
So they have no idea about the karma votes.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are going home got to place them, and then they still ended up going home.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a nice little twist. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out in the future. All right, so now I'm going to ask you how you would rank all of the elimination challenges from 1 to 4.
Okay. So I think, for me personally, it goes without saying, Hall Brawl is going to be number 1. Mm-hmm. Like, Hall Brawl was everything that it lived up to the hype. I mean, you know, we saw 2 people get absolutely destroyed. And surprisingly enough, I'm going to go Shelter in Place for number 2. Just because I thought it was really interesting. Like, mm-hmm. especially like when they had all 4 of them competing at once. Like the format of it and the actual challenge itself, I thought it was really interesting. Number 3 is going to come in with Pole Russell. You know, oldie but goodie. Could have been more exciting if we had some different challengers doing it, but still overall exciting. But number 4 coming in dead last is definitely Ball In.
1000%. I totally agree with your ranking there. But maybe I would put the Shelter challenge first. I don't know. It's between the Shelter and the Hall Brawl for me, because I think because I underestimated the Shelter challenge, and I thought it was going to be a doozy, but it ended up being a lot more entertaining than I thought. So that's the only reason why I would kind of like have those 2 interchangeable. Overall, if I could rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate it an 8. I was really, really entertained by this episode, way more than the season premiere. How about you?
I'm going to give it a 7 or 8. I can give it a 7 or 8 because, I mean, I definitely think it was thoroughly entertaining. You know, Theo and Olivia, they brought out the big guns, and they really made half the episode for me. Like, just how crazy, just in the crazy fashion they won. So I'm going to go about 7 or 8 too.
When we got the preview for the rest of the season, it looks very, very interesting. It looks like there's a good dynamic between relationships and challenges, and I think we're both very curious to see what's going to happen, because there are some people who, like, we went into watching this season, we were just like, oh, this person's going to be great, this person's going to be great, and some people have disappointed us from the first challenge and the elimination. So I feel like we can't predict what's going to happen. All we can do is just watch and see what happens.
And Theo, I'm happy you came back strong, because you was throwing me off at first, man. I pegged you as somebody that I think can win this thing, man. I think you got a winner on you. But you threw me off the first challenge. But, boy, you answered back crazy in the elimination. Crazy.
We're rooting for Theo.
We're definitely rooting for Theo. We're absolutely rooting for Theo.
All right. Well, like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this review of Season 40, Episode 2 of The Challenge.
Come back and watch us again next week.